Today we will study different type of application specific integrated circuits. What is an ASIC? Application specific integrated circuits. What is an integrated IC? IC stand for an integrated circuits. The ICs that are designed for a specific application. That are designed for a specific application. These type of chips are called as application specific integrated circuits. There are two type of design. One is ASIC and another is FPGA. In FPGA, the chip is already manufactured and now we have to program the device. But in ASIC, the chip is not fabricated before. So we need first when we finalize our design. So the design need to be fabricated in a fabrication foundry. So these type of circuits are called as application specific integrated circuits. It means that we need to fabricate the chip. We need to fabricate the chip. There are various flavors of an ASIC. There are various flavors of an ASIC, and the flavors are, I will highlight this ASIC. There are three types of ASIC. One is full custom ASIC, another is semi-custom ASIC, and another is programmable ASIC. So we already studied this programmable ASIC. Like in the programmable ASIC, you have some field programmable gate arrays. So we have studied this kind of ASIC. They are not actually ASIC. They are actually programmable ASIC or programmable FPGAs that can be programmed in the field. Okay, so now what is a full custom ASIC? What is full custom ASIC? So it says that we have to define everything from the scratch. We have to design everything from the scratch. There is no cell library. There is no cell library. We need to define each and every transistor on the chip. And the cells are not pre-characterized. We don't know that what will be the behavior of the cell. What will be the behavior of this cell? Okay, so an engineer designs all of the logic cell and layout for one ASIC. So you have to define the layout of all blocks of an ASIC. You have to define the layout of all. Even the layouts are not defined. So you have to design each and everything from the scratch. So what is the problem with that approach? What is the problem with that approach? So now let's assume that we have a wafer. Okay, so we have a wafer. We already studied wafer. Okay, let's assume this is our wafer, and these are different chips on the wafers. Let's assume this is a chip 1 and this is chip 2, and let's assume this is chip 50. What about chip 1 and chip 2? They are placed adjacent to each other. So now these are different chips. First we have a crystal. Okay, we divide this crystal into different wafers. The wafer itself is divided into different chips. And if you look at each chip consists of different blocks. And within each block there will be a lot of transistors. Now let's assume we look at one chip. Let's assume there is a chip C1. This is a chip C1. And there will be different transistors on these chips. So let's assume this is our chip. This is our chip. And there are three transistors. T1 and T2. And these transistors, and now this is T3. So these are three transistors. All of these transistors, let's assume we want to fabricate all of these transistors. Okay, and we assume that the width and the length of all of these transistors are same. The width and the length of these transistors are same. So it means that W by L of T1 is equal to W by L of T2 is equal to W by L of T3. And they are also of the same type. Of the same type means all of them are, let's assume, n mass. They are all of the same type. Will all of these, okay, now this T1 and T2 is of the same orientation. T1 and T2 are of the T1 and T2 are of the same. What is the same orientation? Same orientation. So same orientation means, like, let's assume if this is W, this is W, and now this is L. And T3 is of different orientation. T3 is on different orientation. So it means it is W and this is L. So we name it W3 and L3, W1 and L1, W2 and L2, and W1 and L1. And we assume that W by L ratio, or the width, all of the width are same, and all of width are the length are same, and the width are also same. So should all of these transistors behave same or differently? Ideally, all of these transistors should behave same or differently? Same. But physically, when we fabricate them, they may behave differently. Why they may behave differently? Because maybe it's possible that the width ideally should be W, but it may have some variation. Let's assume if the width is 50 nanometer, when we actually fabricate it, it's not 50 nanometer. It may be 49.5, and for the other, when we fabricate it, it may be 50.2. Similarly, there may be variation in the length, because the fabrication process that we are fabricating, they are not accurate. And not only this width may change, but length may also change. Not about this width and length may change, but the concentration of the dopant may change. What are the dopant? What are different dopant that we are using? Holes and electrons. And which material we are using? Boron and phosphorus. So we are using different material. So the concentrations of these material may be different in these transistors. So this transistor may behave differently. So if you look at this, okay, now if T1 and T2 are placed side by side to each other, so they will behave like they will match well. They will match well. Match well means, like, let's assume if the delay of one is 1 picosecond, the delay of other transistor may be 1.001 picosecond. So it means that T1 and T2 will match well. T1 and T2 will match well. But T1 and T3 may not match well. Why they may not match well? One reason is that the T3 is located on a different place, and it's also with different orientation. So it means that T1 and T2 that are placed close by each other may match well. The probability that T1 and T2 will have same characteristics is high, and the probability that T1 and T3 has the same characteristics will be low. It's also possible that T1 will match well with T3. It's also possible, but you never know about the fabrication process. But we talk about the probability. So when we talk about the probability, so we say that the transistors that are placed side by side with each other, with the same orientation, with the same sizes, and with the same feature will match well. And the transistor that are with different orientation, it may not match well. So the transistors that are closer to each other with the same orientation, they may match well, and the transistors that are located far from each other may not match well. Now this is the scenario within the chip. We call this as, this is the within the chip variation. So we call this is intra chip variation. What's called? Intra chip variation. Now this T1 and T2 are lying on the same chip. Now if we have the same transistor with the same orientation, now this is, let's assume, chip 1. Now we have another chip 2, And then we also have this transistor T1 and T2, the same transistor with the same orientation, and now we also have the same transistor T3. And all of these are same, the design is same. Actually, the design is same, but we are fabricating a lot number of chips, a lot of chips of the same design. What about T1 of chip 1? T1 of chip 1 will match well with T2 of chip 1, but T1 of chip 1 will not match well with T1 of chip 2. Okay, now if we say that now this is called as, now if you look at here, this is called as inter-chip variation. Yes, later, if it's the same design, so it will be the same. If it is the same design, like let's assume you say that okay, we want 10,000 microprocessors or 1 million microprocessors, and that they are the same design. So if they are the same design, so actually, so now you have to fabricate 1 million chips. When you have 1 million chips, so you have crystal growth, then you have to cut it into wafers, and then you have to cut into different chips. Okay, so this is called as inter-chip variation. So the T1 of chip 2 will not match well with T1 of chip 1, though either. But now if C1 and C2, these are two chips, C1 and C2 are placed closer to each other. So now if we have C1 and C2, so the T1 of C1 and C2 will match well compared to the transistor that is on C50. So this is also, so the chips that are close to each other, they will behave a little bit same, but the chips that are located far away from each other, they may not behave same, though it's the same design. Though it is the same design, because let's assume when you are making the ion implantation, you are not doing the ion implantation for a single chips. You are doing the ion implantation for all the chips at the same time. And when you are doing the ion implantation, you have a mask. Yes. Though the mask have, but the behavior of the masks layers, they will be different. The ion implantation will be different. When you fabricate these chips, the width and the length may not be the same as intended. Let's say you say, okay, I want a width of 50 nanometer, but when we actually fabricate a transistor, maybe the width is not actually 50 meter. It may be 50.1 nanometer. Okay, and maybe for the same transistor for the other thing. So there is a variation in the behavior of this transistor. So when you want to fabricate, each and everything from the scratch, you will not know its characteristics. You will not know its characteristics or behavior. Once you design all of this cell, you send it to the fabrication foundry. When it will be fabricated, then you test the chip. And then when you test the chip, you apply a different test pattern. Then you say, okay, how the chip will behave? What is the delay of each or every logic components? What is the maximum operating frequency on which I can run the design? Okay. So this approach is used when there is no existing cell library available that can be used for the entire design. When there is no cell library, because you don't know the behavior of that technology. So when you are moving from one technology to another technology, let's assume today the technology is prevalent is 32 nanometer, and everybody is making the design on 32 nanometer technology. And you fabricate a multiplexer. So you actually, when somebody has fabricated a multiplexer, they will know at least how the multiplexer will behave. But when you are moving from 32 nanometer technology to 16 nanometer technology, then you will never know. So you have to design everything from the scratch for the new technology. And this pre-characterization of different design is a huge task. Okay, so now if you look at the chips, so there are two types of layers. One is a transistor layers, and above is the metallization layer. Even for the metallization, for the transistor layer, there are a lot of processes, and we already studied it. There are a lot of processes, because there are the piece type substrate. Then we have some deposited in some silicon dioxide. We have a photoresist material, photoresist, and then we have some ion implantation. Then we were developing this polysilicon. terminals, and we also have this aluminum terminals. So actually there are a lot of processes that we studied before. So actually when we fabricate some chip, so we first have to have different layers of the transistor, and then we have different layers of the metallization. Metal layer 1, then some insulation, then metal layer 2, and then insulation, and so forth, so on. Okay, so now this is the thing that I explained. Okay, so, and actually usually there are 5 to 30 wafers in a lot. 5 to 30 wafers in a lot. Each wafer consists of 10 to 100 chips. It also depends upon the size of the wafer. It also depends upon the size of the IC. It also depends upon the size of your design. Let's assume if you want to fabricate a microprocessor, it's a more complex design. Now, even within the microprocessor, you have a complex microprocessor or a simple microprocessor. One microprocessor is, for instance, is also supporting multiply and divide instruction, and other microprocessors does not support divide and multiply instruction. So which design is more complex? The microprocessor with multiplier and divider. Okay, one microprocessor can issue 4 instructions in a cycle. It has more parallelism. Other microprocessor may issue only 1 instruction per cycle, so it is less complex. It also depends on the complexity of your design. So if your design is more complex, the chip size will be bigger. If your design is simple, the chip size will be smaller. It also depends upon the crystal growth process, whether you have fabricated, you have manufactured your silicon crystal, maybe using Czochralski process or float zone process. We already studied these kind of processes in our previous lectures. Okay, it also depends upon it, what is the size of the wafers, what is the size of your design. So actually, and there are even different crystals. You may have one crystal, then you may have another crystal. Okay, this crystal is also divided into different wafers. This crystal is also divided into different wafer, and this wafer is by itself is divided into different chips, and each chip consists of different modules. If you look at each and individual module, each transistor consists of like the gates. Logically, they consist of gates, and physically they consist of transistors. And if you look at the transistors, so there are different layers of transistors. Not only different layers of transistor, but different layers of metallization. Okay, so there are different wafer growth process, like we grow the wafers using Czochralski method, or we using the wafers using float zone process. Okay, and I also give you an example of a paint. Let's assume if you are painting a wall, will the thickness of the paint will be same on each location? No, the thickness may vary. Similarly, if you are fabricating any transistor, and this transistor is also very small sizes. When they are very small sizes, so the transistor will also, the behavior of the transistors will vary, even if we want to design it with the same width and the length. So these are all the things that I already explained, that what is the matching characteristics, and it also depends upon, this matching will depend on how apart 2 ICs are on the wafer. Okay. Now, we have now another type of ASIC. First is full custom ASIC. In full custom ASIC, what we have to do? We have to design everything from the scratch. We have to determine the size of each and every transistor. Another type of ASIC is called as standard cell-based integrated circuits. Okay. So in full custom ASIC, what is the disadvantage of full custom ASIC? First, we have to develop a library. We not only have to fabricate all the transistors, but we also have to fabricate all the metallization layer, and we don't know the characteristics of all these cells. In the standard cell array-based ASIC, a library is available. There is a manufacturing process. You have to fabricate all the transistor. You have to make all the metallization layer, but a library of cell is available. When a library of cell is available, it means that when you use those components within the library, okay, let's assume if you want, they have a library of AND gates, library of inverters, library of OR gates, library of NOR gates. If you think of in terms of library, so if we say we have a library of AND gates, what features they have? May have. It can be a 2-input AND gate. It can be a 3 input AND gate. It can be a 4 input AND gate. So this is what's the input of gate. So for all there will be a specific library for all of these gates. Now even for all each and every of these AND gate, maybe one gate is optimized for power, another gate is optimized for latency, another gate may be optimized for area. So even within this same AND gate, let's assume you have two input AND gate. You have two input AND gate. One AND gate is optimized for latency, so we can call it AND2 type 1, AND2 type 2. What is AND2? Two input AND gate. Type 1, type 2, type 3, and then you know the behavior of these AND gates. Why you know the behavior of this gate? Because somebody fabricated these AND gates before. When they fabricated it before and they tested it, they say, okay, how this AND gate will behave, how this AND gate will behave in a different environment, and there will also be variation within that AND gate. If there is a variation, this AND gate will behave this. Let's assume if you say, have you seen any IC specification? Within the IC specification, so in the IC specification they say that okay, this IC may run between 50 to 60 megahertz. The specification is given. Okay, this is the minimum value, this is a typical value, and this is the worst case value. What we call it? If did you remember the Gaussian distribution? Normal or Gaussian distribution. Okay, now it may say, now we can say it like this is a Gaussian distribution. Okay, I have not drawn it. I have not drawn it like perfect Gaussian distribution will look like this. It's a Gaussian distribution. So it means that now if we have a Gaussian distribution, so it means that now this is your latency. Let's assume this latency is 3 nanosecond. So it means that for the majority of the cases, the latency will be 3 nanosecond. And the worst case, what will be the worst case latency? Maybe 4 nanosecond. And here it will be 2 nanosecond. So what is the best case latency? 2 nanosecond. Okay, this is the best case latency. This is the average. It means that the probability of the average is high or low? High. It's a probability density function. It's mathematics. It's a probability density function. When it's a probability density function, it means that this average case will occur maybe 50% of the time. And maybe this 4 nanosecond will occur maybe 1% of the time. And let's say if you look at here, this is maybe this is 3.5 nanosecond. So within this range, so it's a probability density function. Probability density function. So if we say that now and this behavior, so actually now there are three types of values. One is typical value. What is typical value here? 3 nanosecond. What is the worst case value? 4 nanosecond. What's the best case value? 2 nanosecond. So in this case, there are different values. And actually now if we have the same, so actually let's assume if we have an AND gate, let's say this is an input AND gate, and let's assume this is the probability density function. So they say that the typical value of this AND gate is 3, best case 2, and worst case 4. So you can, now this is type 1 AND gate. Maybe a type 2 AND gate will have different characteristics. So now there is also a trade-off. Now maybe we have the same AND gate. So now this is AND gate 1 and 2 and 2 type 1. Maybe we have another AND gate 2 and type 2, and the typical value and the worst case value and the best case value of type 2 will be different from type 1. Not only it will differ in performance or latency, but it will also differ in the power characteristics. Because for type 2, what may be different in type 2? What may be different in type 2? What are the parameters that will be different from type 1 and type 2? What can be different parameters? Width, length, okay, and also the concentration maybe, but the concentration typically is same. So typically they differ in the weight and the length. Okay, and not only that, what will be the, let's assume if you are using a NAND gate, let's assume you are using a NAND gate, so there will be 2 transistors in the pull-up network and 2 transistors in the pull-down network, and you change the, so they change the width and the length of this transistor to optimize for latency and optimize for power, and there are different parameters. Okay, now we call it the pre-characterization. So once you are moving to a new technology, a completely new design, you're designing from the scratch, you will not know the behavior until and unless you fabricate that design. Once you fabricate it, let's say you say, okay, I want to see the behavior of AND gates. So first you have to fabricate these AND gates. And when you fabricate these AND gates, and then you check the behavior of these AND gates on that particular fabrication technology. And then you say, oh, then you do the characterization. So actually, which type of design is much complex? Full custom ASIC or standard cell-based ASIC? Full custom ASIC. Full custom ASIC. Why it is complex? Because you have to design everything from the scratch. You also have to do the pre-characterization of all the cells or all the type of the module and the cells. Okay. So in the in the cell array based ASIC, we call it as semi-custom. We also call it semi-custom ASIC. So there is a cell-based library. So these are libraries for inverters, there are library for AND gates, OR gate, MUX, and so forth, so on. We have decoders and a lot of. And these standard cell areas are also called as flexible block in a CBIC. CBIC stands for cell-based integrated circuits. So are also called as flexible blocks. They are built of rows of standard cell, like a wall of bricks, like a wall of bricks. And ASIC designer can only place of the standard cell, and then they provide the interconnect. They place all the cells in a row. They place all the cells in a row. I will explain this how it would look like. Okay. So now let's assume we have some row of cell. So maybe this is cell 1. This is cell 2. This is cell 3, and so forth, so on. And cell n. Okay, so the width of all the cell varies. This cell 1 may be an AND gate. This cell 2 may be an inverter. This cell 3 may be a decoder, maybe any kind of thing. So this is the, and then we form the rows of these cells. We form the rows of these cells, and they are placed together. Now there are two things. Now we have these cells, but maybe we also provide a connection between these cells. Maybe this cell 1, maybe this cell 1 is an AND gate. Maybe this is cell 1. This is an AND gate, and the output of this AND gate is going to an inverter. It is cell 2. So maybe, okay, now what? Now this is cell 1. Maybe this cell 1 is an AND gate. Now logically, now we are talking logically, not physically. Okay, and then we have an inverter that is an cell 2. Now if you see, okay, now you want this design. So you place cell 1 and cell 2, let's assume adjacent to each other, but you have to make a connection. But when you have to make a connection, so you provide a connection between cell 1 and cell 2. Okay, so it can be directly connected, like let's assume they get connected using polysilicon because they are placed adjacent to each other. But if you want to connect this cell with this cell, so you need one connection from here to here. So for that, what you need? You need metallization layer. You need metallization layer. Okay, now if you want to place all these cells, so first they are connected in a row. So there are two type of connection. One is a channeled cell array based ASIC, and another is channel-less cell array-based ASIC. What's a channel cell array-based ASIC? So what? So it's already given it. Okay. So channel and channel-less array-based ASIC. So we already said that if we want to design some system, so there are some rows, and this row consists of different cells. Okay, so we call it like this, that there is a row 1 and then row 2 and then row 3. Okay, so actually this length is same, and even this row 1 may consist of different cells. Maybe this is cell 1, maybe this is cell 2, and maybe this is cell 50, maybe this is cell 51, and so forth, so on. Okay, so now we can make a connection between row 1 and row 2, and then there is a spacing that is provided. Can you see the spacing? And this spacing is typically used for connection. This is used for connection. How you can connect? Maybe using this, you can connect cell 2 with this cell. It's also possible, but maybe you are connecting this cell with this cell. So for this, there are rows, and each rows consist of different cells, and then there is a spacing between different rows, and this spacing is used for connecting different cells across the same rows, within the same row, or across different rows. So it can be used for intra-row connection or inter-row connection. Okay. So what is the advantage of ASIC? Okay, so first we need to define manufacturing lead time. Manufacturing lead time. So the manufacturing lead time is the time required to make an IC, to manufacture an IC. So when you design an IC, you send it to foundry for fabrication, and the time to fabricate it is the manufacturing lead time. So it is the time required to fabricate all the mask layers for the mask layer, and also you do the packaging. So it's the time to fabricate all the transistors. Okay, so the manufacturing lead time for a full custom ASIC will be very high. For a cell-based ASIC is also very high. What is the manufacturing lead time for an FPGA? So it's already manufactured. It's in your hand. It's in your hand. So if you compare full custom ASIC or cell array-based ASIC, first when you make a design, you have to send it to the foundry. You send all of the design to the foundry, and they will fabricate the design. They will not only fabricate the transistor, but they also fabricate the metallization layer. But if you have an FPGA and a chip and you want to program it, the FPGA is already there with you. When it's there, you just need to download the program and then you do it. Okay, so the manufacturing, what will be the manufacturing lead time of an FPGA? 0, because it's already manufactured. It's already manufactured. So what is the advantage of CBIC? What is the advantage of CBIC compared to full custom ASIC? So the designer save time. Why it save time compared to the full custom ASIC? Because not library is there. Manufacturing lead time is still there. The manufacturing lead time is also exists for the full custom ASIC. Manufacturing lead time also exists for the cell array-based ASIC. But the designer save time because the cell libraries are there. But what is this disadvantage? No. No. The advantage, disadvantage, you have to first understand all the library, and then you have the expense. You need to pay the cost for the library. So maybe if your fabric a 32 nanometer technology and library of all 32 nanometer, it may cost you million of dollars. It may cost you a lot of bucks, maybe thousands of bucks. I don't know this, and this cost varies from technology to technology. It also varies. It varies. So actually, you need to buy these library, and there is also non-recurring engineering cost. Okay, non-recurring engineering. What is a non-recurring engineering cost? What is a non-recurring engineering cost? Non-recurring. G. The non-recurring engineering cost exists. The non-recurring engineering cost exists both for full custom ASIC and serial based ASIC. G. One non. It's in economics. You didn't study economics?
Sir, one time.
Yeah, one time, yes. Non-recurring. But actually, now, whether you want to fabricate a single chip or 1 million chips, you need to pay a fixed price. You need to pay a fixed price. So let's assume if you want 5 designs, only 5 designs, and you do it for full custom ASIC or cell array based ASIC, and even if you want to design 5 chips or 1 million chips, you need to pay 50,000 bucks. If you're paying 50,000 bucks, and if you want to design one chip, so this is 50,000 plus the cost of one chip. Maybe the cost of one chip is 1,000. How it will cost you? 51,000. But if you have 2 chips, 50,000 will be divided by 2 chips. So the cost of one chip is now 26,000. So if you increase the number of chips, so the per unit cost will be higher or less? Less. So this is the economy of scale. For the economy of scale, this design makes only sense. This design makes only sense if you want to fabricate a number of chips. Okay, so this is non-recurring engineering cost is there. So the non-recurring engineering cost implies that you have to pay a one-time cost. One time. Like the cost for an admission. When any student will go to a university, they have to pay for the admission cost. Whether he studies there for 1 semester or 8 semesters, but he has to pay the admission cost. So actually, this is a one-time cost. So the one-time cost that we call it a non-recurring engineering cost. So the non-recurring engineering cost will only make sense for economy of scale if you want to make more and more design. Now let's assume if you want to buy 1 kilo of tomato, maybe it will cost you 100 rupees. But if you buy 100 kilos, so maybe the per kilo cost will be less. If you go to Sabzi Mandi and maybe you will get it much cheaper. And that's the principle of economy of scale. The principle of economy, and the big companies get a lot of benefits because they're manufacturing the things at a high cost. Okay? At a high cost, and they use the economy of scale. So what is the feature of CBIC? Now we are continued. Each standard cell in library is constructed using full custom design method, but you can design these predefined and pre-characterized circuits without having to do the full custom design yourself. You're not doing the full custom design by yourself. Somebody has designed the full custom, and you are just using the library. The standard cells are designed to fit together like bricks in a wall. I told you bricks in a wall. So these are different bricks. This is brick 1, brick 2, and then you're combining all of these bricks to make the wall. And there are also some predefined library cells. So actually, if you look at this, these are fuse blocks. This is a decoder, this is a multiplexer, let's assume, this is a controller, and this is an adder. And if you look at this adder, so these are different rows of these adders. So if you look at this controller, these are different rows of the controller. So actually, when you have these predefined blocks, you can just use that blocks. Either you can design the controller or yourself by combining all of the existing blocks, or you can use this controller or this multiplexer or decoder from the library. And if some design is not available in the library, how you can design that cell? You can use not custom. You can use existing library to create a new block. Okay, so let's assume if you want to design a multiplexer, and let's assume multiplexer is not there. How you can design a multiplexer? Using AND gates, using OR gate, and inverter. You just get these blocks and then combine them, and then you say, okay, what type of AND gate I use in the first step? Maybe AND gate type 1, maybe AND gate type 2, and so you design this from the existing library. So if a block is already available, you can just use that block directly. But if it's not available, you can design it from the existing blocks that are available in the library. Okay, so this, if you look at here, so if you have different blocks like block 1, block 2, and then the width varies, and there are also row 1, row 2 up to row n, and there is also, if you look at here, there are also some can you see, for powers, some columns for power. Why for power? Because you need VDD. If you remember in the CMOS logic, VDD is connected typically to each block. So you need VDD, and what you apart from VDD, you also need ground. So actually these are the power rails. So you have power rails vertical power rails, and the different instances. So if you look at here, there's a power rail. So the power rail, and they are connected to the pads. So the power rail, and they are distributed across all the rows. So you have some column of power rails, VDD and VSS. Then this is power cells for VDD and VSS are there, and this is a space between rows for routing. So let's assume if you want to connect this cell with this cell, so you can connect it through the space. That's the space available, and this is you can connect them. So you can connect different cells. So this space between row of this interconnect is not fixed; it's variable. Like if the connections are more, if routing is more or complex, so how you can avoid this problem? You can increase the space between different rows, and that space can be used for routing. So now if you see, can you see? So this is a space, maybe so I will say this. So this is space S1, and this is space S2. So in this case, S2 is high or S1 is high? S2, the space S2 is greater than 1. So you can vary the space. So maybe there are more connections that are required between row 2 and row 3, and also for the connections. So if the connections are more complex, so you can increase the space. And you also have different layers, metal layer 1 and metal layer 2. So let's assume we have a metal layer 1 and metal layer 2. So we have two metal layers, and in between there is an insulation. So with these two, like, okay, now if you see these two lines, are they connected or not connected? Not connected. So actually, can we see? So it means now you have this row, and now you have this, column and rows. The column is highlighted in green, and the row is highlighted in pink, and they lie in different planes, not on the same plane. They lie in different planes because it's a 3D stack. When they lie in different planes, and in between this there is an insulation, so it means they are not connected. Actually, it looks like that it's connected, but because it's a 2D plane. So actually, if we say now it's now connected, now we have a spot here, dot here. So it means that now when it's a dot here, so this is a dot here. So the insulation, we put a hole in this insulation, and then we make a metal connection between. So it means that now these two signals can be connected. They may lie within different planes, but we drill a hole, and this hole is called as feed through a wire. Feed through. So it means that now we drill a hole, and now these two are connected. Actually, so the connection, what is a feed through? A connection that crosses over a row of standard cell using a feed through. So the feed through, the term feed through refers to a piece of metals that is used to pass a signal through a cell or to a space in a cell to be used through as a feed through. Okay, now we have another type of ASIC. We call it as gate array based ASIC. Gate array based ASIC, GA. So there are three types of gate array based ASIC. First we studied full custom ASIC, then cell based ASIC. Now we have a gate array based ASIC. There are three types of gate array based ASIC. First is the channel gate array, another is a channel-less gate array, and another is structure gate array. In gate array based ASIC, now these are common to all of these. In gate array based ASIC, the transistors are predefined on the bypass. The transistors are predefined and they are prefabricated. They are prefabricated, but the metallization layer is not fabricated. So these are seeds of the transistors that are prefabricated on the chip, and you just need to define the metallization layer. You just need to define the metallization layer. So this is like a pizza. Just think of a pizza. Think of a pizza. So if you see the full custom ASIC, you don't know that what is the composition of the pizza. How many flour you have to use, how much water you have to use, how much salt you have to use. You don't know it. You don't know the formula. You are doing an experimentation, and based on these experimentation, you define it. In another example, semi-custom ASIC. So it means even you know the formula. You have the preparation. Okay, I will mix this amount of dough, and it will behave like this. Like you want a spicy, or you want how much spicy, or more spicy, or less spicy. These are different characteristics. You can vary the characteristics. You can vary the characteristics. Okay, so but you have to make a dough in both of the cases. In full custom ASIC and the semi-custom ASIC, you have to make a dough. Everything from the scratch you have to pre-fabricate. First you have to make the dough, and then you put the toppings and all of the thing. But in full custom ASIC, you don't know the formula. But in semi-custom ASIC, you know at least the formula, and you have to do everything. You have to make the dough, and then you put the toppings on these things and things. And in the gate array based ASIC, the dough is prepared. So it means it is just like the sea of transistors. The dough is already prepared, and you need to define the toppings. So in this case, the gate array basic, all the transistors are pre-fabricated, and just you need to define the connections. So the predefined pattern of transistor on a gate array is base array. So this is called as base array. And the smallest element that is replicated to make a base array is called as a base cell. It is the smallest unit. And there are many smallest units in different architecture. In some architecture, the smallest unit is LUT. If you remember, macro cells, there are some units. Some LUT, logic element, was also the smallest unit. So there are some smallest units you can make some layers. So only few layers of metals which define the interconnect and transistor is customized. The transistor are prefabricated. Yes, you just need to make the connection. And what is the advantage of the gate array based ASIC? The advantage of the gate array based ASIC, the manufacturing lead time will be high or low? Low. Compared to what? Full custom and semi-custom ASIC. The manufacturing lead time, because the transistors are prefabricated, you just need to do the connection. And for that connection, you need manufacturing lead time. So the manufacturing lead time will be less compared to the thing. And the cost of initial fabrication for the gate array based ASIC is shared for each customer. Now, there are two costs. First, the cost to build a transistor, and second, the cost to build the metallization. But when you prefabricate the transistor, so the cost will be shared across all customers. And actually, it will be done in a very large scale. When something is done in a very large scale, so non-recurring energy cost will be high or low? Low. Because it is done in a very high scale. So the impact of the non-recurring energy cost may be high, but the impact of that non-recurring cost on each individual chip will be low. What's the concept? Economy of scale. So the concept economy of scale is used. So now we have two types of array: channel gate array. In a channel gate array, there is a space between row of transistor for wiring. There is a space between, and this row is fixed. Okay, this row is the spacing is fixed. Okay, now what was the if you remember the previous architecture, semi-custom ASIC, the spacing was fixed or variable? Because we were not fabricating the transistor. Now in this case, the transistor are what? Prefabricated. When they are prefabricated, you cannot fabricate it again. Okay, and in this case, we need to fabricate both the transistor layer and the metallization. Now, since the transistors are prefabricated, so actually we have to define a layout. So in the channel gate array, so there is a spacing between different rows. Okay, and this spacing between different rows is fixed or variable? Fixed. And in channel gate array basic, there is no spacing between different rows. There is no spacing between different rows. And all that. So if you want to make a connection, what we have to do? No. If you want to make a connection, we have to use the transistor layers, and then that transistor cannot be used. That transistor can be used for in connection. So which design will have much higher density? Channel-less or channel gate array? Density. Channel-less, the density will be high. More transistor can be fabricated now. More transistor can be fabricated on what? On the chip. But connection is easy in which type? Which? In a channel. Connection will be if you have more and more routing. The routing is complex. If the routing is more complex, which design is better? Channel. So it depends on your design. Let's say if you have design and your design, the routing is more complex. Which type of design is much better? Channel. And the design is not complex. So not the design. The routing is not complex. So you can use the channel-less. So in the channel-less, you can use the rows of the transistor for interconnection, and that transistor cannot be used. Now we have a structured gate array. In a structured gate array, it can be a channel-less gate array or it can be a channel gate array, but it combines the feature of CBIC and with the gate arrays. So in this case, we have some custom cells, and these custom cells can be embedded, and they are prefabricated. It combines the features of CBIC. What is CBIC? Cell-based integrators and gate arrays. So what we do? So now in this case, so there are two like this logic. Like you can also prefabricate logic components. These logic components can be a microprocessor, complex microprocessor. It can be a DSP block. It can be any kind of a block. And you can also fabricate memory in advance. So what you get it? So it means that now you have a transistor. So you have a chip. Okay. And you have a microprocessor, let's assume, and you have a DSP block, let's assume. So these two are designed using CBIC approach, and they are prefabricated. They are, but the metallization layer is not there. And now this area is a gate array. So in the gate array, you have what series of transistors. It can be a channel-less gate array or channel gate array. So it combines the benefit of what? CBIC and gate arrays. And you can prefabricate, and it's already fabricated, the custom blocks. And this microprocessor and DSP, they are designed using which technology, which technique? CBIC. And in these features, the spacing between different rows may be variable. And this microprocessor and DSP is already prefabricated. When it's prefabricated, so the cost will be shared across all the chips. Okay, and it's designed using the CBIC approach, and this gate array is designed using the gate array approach, the base array approach. Okay, so now in this case, all the layers will be defined, and the metallization layers is not define